Hello everyone, we will make the router on a stick configuration in this lesson. First let's take a look at our network diagram and see what it is. In our topology, we have one switch, one router. Here we have two users in VLAN 10, and we have two users in VLAN 20. I have already entered the IPs and gateway IPs of the computers, and if you have problems opening the lab, you can do it manually yourself. There is no configuration on the switch, there is no configuration on the router. Now we will create VLAN 10 and VLAN 20 on this switch. We will make our port connected to the router a trunk port. We will create two sub-interfaces on the router side. We will create gigabit 0/0.10 for VLAN 10 and gigabit 0/0.20 sub-interfaces for VLAN 20. The gateway of our users here is 10.1.10.1, that is, the IP address of the sub-interface that we will create in the router. Users here will come to the router and VLAN to VLAN routing will be provided through the router. First, let's start with the switch. I write VLAN 10. When I type VLAN 20 without exiting here, VLAN 20 is created, but you need to type the command exactly, where the tab key does not work. Let's call it exit. Let's do both ports at the same time using the interface range command. We say switch port mode access. I write switch port access VLAN 10. I write the commands briefly. Let's go back to the old commands with the arrow keys, type 3 and 4. When we say 3 and 4, we say third and fourth. We went under the port. I find the switch port mode access command with the arrow keys, then I type switch port access VLAN 20 into it. Interface gigabit 0/1. I will also make a trunk, that is, our port connected to the router is gigabit 0/1. Switch port mode trunk. From now on, all VLANs on the switch will be tagged and sent to router 1 from this port. Let's check our settings with show run. Fast Ethernet 1 and 2 on VLAN 10. Fast Ethernet 3 and 4 at VLAN 20. The trunk and the mode of our gigabit 0/1 interface. Now let's configure our router. First I go under this interface by typing interface gigabit Ethernet 0/0 and I open this port saying no shutdown, then I write no IP address and specify that I will not give an IP address. After logging out, I find it again from the commands I typed and put a period at the end. After this point I specify the sub-interface number, where the number may start as 1, 2, 3, 4, but since we use VLAN 10, I write 10 here to make it easier to remember. You do not have to write 10 here, but if you type 10, it will be easier for you to understand that it is VLAN 10. In sub-interface, we determine the VLAN we will use with the encapsulation.1q command. I write 10 here. The VLAN ID we write here is important, but a number we write here does not matter. We can write any number. IP address 10.1.10.125.255.255.0. I find the commands I typed and create sub-interface 20 from the shortcut. In this, I say encapsulation.1q20, I say I will use VLAN 20. Again, I find the IP address with the arrow keys and make it 20.1. Now let's check our settings by saying end. When we look at gigabit 0/0 here, we see that there is no IP address and it is open. Here you can see the sub-interface that we have created, gigabit 0/0.10, this is our sub-interface number. Here we have a VLAN ID at 10, encapsulation.1q, likewise here we have a sub-interface 20, here we are done. Now let's check if there is access to the router from the PC. I write ping 10.1.10.1. Now that we have access to the gateway, let's look at 20.1 and see if it does. 20.1 is also okay. So let's see if we can access the user in VLAN 20 here. Let's write 20.3. As you can see, VLAN to VLAN routing is now provided. At the moment we have not written any route, because here in the route table, the users in the 10.1.10.0 subnet go to router 1 when they go to the users in the 10.1.20.0 subnet. When router 1 checks the routing table, it sees that this subnet is connected directly on it and sends the packets from the relevant interface. By configuring router on a stick, we have ensured that the data forwarding process between VLANs takes place. That's all we have configured. Now the VLAN to VLAN routing process has been carried out. If you don't want users here to access it, or if you don't want some users to be accessed, then you need to write access control list on this router, which I will explain in our next lessons. Goodbye to see you in our next lesson.